Let's get to Bill McDonough and talk to him about his book, Sons of Beaches.
Are you in a boat?
Yeah, I am.
How about you?
Okay, that's it. Get stuffed. I'm not doing the interview if you're in a boat.
Yeah, I'm down at the Gippsland Lakes, coming live to you from downtown Paynesville.
Ah, no. Oh, lovely part of the world.
Meredith and I have a boat down here, and it has been flooding. So
Yes.
we decided we better get down here and have a look at the old girl, just see if she's okay. But it's all good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What do you use the boat for, Bill?
Look, Brian, it's just like a little holiday house. We just use it for holidays. It's a getaway. It's a liveaboard. You know, we come down for weekends and, Easter, and we have the Christmas holidays here on it.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Do you take it out much?
Yeah, we go out all over the place. The lakes are fantastic. You see, there's heaps of places to go here. You know, like little sort of inlets and coves and bays, and you can usually find a good spot to go and nose up on the beach. There's no rocks here, so you can push the boat up onto the beach, tie her off, and then you can just sit there for a couple of days and get on the piss.
Oh, that sounds great.
The responsible serving of alcohol and boat operation, disclaimer, insert here. Hey, the book, tell us why you felt the need to put it all in writing.
Well, it got to the stage, Kevin, there was a lot of nonsense written about Australian crawl and Guy in particular, and, you know, things that were propping up on Wikipedia that just weren't true. And I just got sick and tired of it. So I thought, once and for all, let's just set the record straight. That was one of the reasons. And the other reason was that, you know, friends and relatives kept on telling me, oh, you've lived this interesting, unusual life. And I've gone, oh, have I? You know, it's just what I've done. And they said, no, you've got to write the stories down, particularly about, you know, all the stuff you did with Guy even before Australian Crawl, because they were exceptional times. And that's exactly what I thought I'd do. I actually started writing the book as a series of sort of like short stories. One of my friends, a lady called Sue, she's an art teacher, she said, oh, you've got to write these stories down. So I did, and I had about 6 stories, and then I thought to myself, well, maybe I've got a book here. So I sort of stuck them in chronological order, and then I started to fill in between.
So you didn't start at the beginning, you actually probably more likely started at the end rather than the beginning.
I sort of started in the middle because they started as the exciting dinner party sagas, you know. Tell us a story, Billy, tell us a story. And I'd go, well, hang on. Did I tell you the one about the New South Wales coppers when we got arrested? No. So off I'd go and I'd tell that story. So I probably wrote that first, which is the Mullumbimby ambush. Then I wrote something about, you know, that story where we sailed across the Indian Ocean and got marooned on Christmas Island. And then I just shoved it all into order, as I said, and then I just went back and started to make sense of it from when we were little boys going right through to Guy's death and beyond.
Wow. How long did it take you to write, and what was, you know, did you block off, you know, 5 hours a day, or what was your process and how long did it take?
Well, it started off just me telling stories, you know, on holidays with friends. And I think we were actually in Bali, not a Kuta or any of those sort of, you know, touristy joints. We were on the back blocks up the east coast. And I just started writing over the holidays and probably got, you know, 1 or 2 stories down, and then I'd put it away. And then I might not get back to it, you know, for 6 months. I wrote a lot on the boat here. See, I'm still in business. I'm still running a business. And, you know, you get busy with people ringing you up and trying to keep the business going and paying staff and all that sort of nonsense. And you get bogged down with the day-to-day realities of life. Yeah. And coming down onto Pisces 2, it's called, this boat. And, you know, I could get down to, I go across the lake to a place called the Grange, or into Duck Arm, where I can nose up on a beach, and I've got 90 Mile Beach behind me. I can go through the sand dunes, and there's no one there, and I can just sit on the boat and go tappity tap 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 tap, and get I can get a whole day in because I got solar power here on the boat, so I can just sit on the boat in complete calm and not be interrupted, and that's where I did a fair bit of writing for the book here. Yeah.
Wow.
Was it hard to write both? I mean, from a writing point of view, and from a what was coming out of your soul?
Oh yes. Look, fortunately, I've got a good memory. My wife would testify to that. I keep forgetting my keys in the wallet. Sometimes I wouldn't know where my dick is, but in terms of the old memories, I've got a good recollection. I can remember what Guy and I did. I can remember what happened in Australian Crawl. I can remember, the times I used to, work with Brian and all the other guys in rock and roll during those times. So it was pretty clear. It wasn't hard for me to recollect, But then there's some very emotional, sad parts to the book, particularly the chapter about Guy's death. And, that's something that you never really get over, and that still can hurt. You'd spend a day writing that chapter or a couple of days writing that chapter and you'd be pretty drained.
Yeah.
I'd just break open the gin bottle at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Have a few drinks.
I wrote a book and I found at times you're kind of reliving a lot of the stuff that you've been through. And I sort of, I'm glad I did it, but I found that there were certain parts of it that, I'd be in tears writing it, and there was some bad things that happened that you got to go through again, and I just found that really painful. I loved it when things were going well in the book, but that would have been very difficult for you, and
yeah. See, the good thing about my situation was that I got picked up by a really good publisher. Hardy Grant and their subdivision called Ultimo Press. It's a brand new subdivision of Hardy Grant.
Yeah, they're good.
And the people there were and are very, very good. They're really great to work with. They didn't try and tell me how to write the book, but they were pretty strict on how I should present certain aspects. And Brian, you'll understand this, when you're in a big band like Uncanny X-Men and Australian Crawl, there's all the shit that goes down, all the personality problems, the egos, all of that. Yep. And I was told, I really have to be generous in spirit and I should be kind and in my reflections. So, this wasn't a book about settling old scores and sticking the knife in. So I tried to keep it pretty level so far as, that type of emotional experience went.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that you did it that way?
Yes, I am actually, because, I'm not the sort of guy that's going to come down to the level of certain people who shall remain nameless. I'm not about settling old scores. All that stuff that happened years ago, it's just water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned. So I was pretty happy about that approach. They cut a lot of the sex out, though. Yeah. They sanitised it a bit.
A lot of the things in the 80s, you couldn't do it today. No way.
No, we'd be hung by the neck until dead, Brian.
Thank goodness nobody had, phones in the camera phones, because that would have been a disaster for us.
Mate, you and I would be in an orange suit still.
Yeah, I reckon we would.
I haven't finished the book, and the bits I've read, though, really interested in your childhood, to be honest. And I didn't realise your dad died when you were so young.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why Guy and I were, particularly close. I think, in the book I'm telling the story about how I had to sort of feel as though I had responsibility to look after him, being the bigger brother, the older brother. now that Dad was gone. You know, if Dad had lived, I think things would have been completely different. I'm sure they would have been. I think Dad would have steered Guy and I away from music and rock and roll. And we were both very good sports players.
Swimmers. You're a swimmer.
Yeah. And Guy was a great footballer too, as was Brad Robinson, Australian crawl. But, yeah, we're all very sporty. So maybe if Dad had lived, he might have said, you're not doing that bloody rock and roll stuff. Hey, that Mick Jagger. Dad, I remember Dad saw Mick Jagger and Rolling Stones on television just before he died. He was appalled. You know, he was into Harry Belafonte and stuff like that. yeah, The King and I and all those sort of musicals.
If your dad had lived, Sam Blanc and Glass Onion would never have been the starting point of your musical career?
Maybe not. Dad might have, pushed us more along the sporting line. And look, I'm not sure. Look, Dad was very progressive. I don't want to paint him as being some sort of real redneck conservative. He wasn't, because our family business was the textile business.
Yeah.
And Dad had come straight out of school into the family business, and he'd been in it for 18 years, from 18 to 37, when he got terribly ill and died. And he was, he was pretty hip, the old man. I remember
had a bloody MG sports car, didn't he? One of his first cars.
Yeah, he had an MG TC, and he wore some of the latest fashions too, because he was in the fashion industry. He was in the rag trade, so he had some really sort of like cool outfits that he'd, picked up from his overseas travels and, watching fashion trends in America, all that sort of stuff. He probably would have allowed me and Guy to dabble in the music, but whether we would have gone on and done what we did, who knows? That's the big $64 question, isn't it?
I reckon he would have been horrified that Sam Blanc ran second to Jamie Redfern in a talent quest.
Yeah, we were. I think there might have been a little bit of shenanigans going on there. I think Liberace might have had a little bit of a say in what was going on there, because Redfern was a Liberace protege.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a happening 70 talent quest, wasn't it, on Channel 10? Channel
That's
O
right.
would have been there.
Channel O, Ross D. Wiley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ross was he was the presenter.
Yep.
That's where I met Bon Scott.
Well, and then as talent quests go, then you did the 3XY Hoadleys, a couple of years later or a year later after that?
Yeah, we did that in our sort of like first college year at Prey School. So, we'd grown our hair long, and we were able to go out and buy groovy, outfits and really look the part. Yeah, and we played. We got to the Melbourne final at Festival Hall. Yeah. So, but we didn't get beyond that. Who won it that year? Fraternity.
Yes.
Bon Scott again.
My old man's a groovy old man. Gets himself in a hell of a jam.
No, that was the Valentines.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, Fraternity did the version of Seasons of Change, the other version.
Yeah.
Oh. They were good. They were a good band, Fraternity. Very good band.
I never saw Fraternity, but I saw the Valentines, because they used to play at our yacht club dances when I was a teenager. And then there I was in the Channel O green room talking to Bon and the other guy, Vince Lovegrove.
Yep.
Yeah, Vince, he was a lovely guy. He's dead now.
Yes.
Yeah, we did a fair bit with Vince, ironically, when he was, in journalism. Yeah. Yeah, we did some interviews with Vince for EMI. Yeah, he was a good bloke. I liked him.
Yep. What are Aussie Crawl fans going to find out in reading this book, Bill, that they might not have known, or that might surprise them or might shock them?
Well, I think they're going to find out exactly what happened and, who did what. Because in rock and roll, a lot of people like to rewrite history to suit their agenda, their own agenda. And, look, I took a back seat. I wasn't really worried about it, for 30 years. But then it gets to the point where you just get fed up with people just rewriting history. So I just wanted to tell people, these were the songs we actually wrote, guys. Oh, by the way, remember we wrote half that album and then we wrote half the other album. And, we did have an influence and an impact on the band as two brothers, because a lot of that just got swept under the carpet. And it's not about me wanting to sort of go, oh, well, now I'm, famous and now everyone knows what I did. It's just that I just hate people not being generous enough to tell exactly what happened about a band, about a time in history, so that, people then can just read about it and experience it and make up their own minds as to, how it may have affected them at the time. That was one of the reasons I was pretty happy about getting it published. And I can tell you it was harder to get a book published than it was to get a record contract. Really, really difficult. Yeah.
That's surprising. That's really surprising that it was hard to get a contract because, the huge band and, you've written, as you say, we and Kev were talking about it before, about all the songs that you and Guy wrote. And, they're a lot of the very best songs that the band played.
Oh,
they were.
Indisposed, Shutdown's yours, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Errol,
Yeah,
no, not you again. Things don't seem downhearted. My God.
Yeah. See, a lot of those songs were written when we were in the Flatheads pre-crawl.
Yep.
And see, that's another element that people don't, probably know about. I just wanted to explain that, Australian Crawl just didn't arrive on Countdown, with James and Two Broken Arms.
Yes.
There were
pretty good arrival.
It was a pretty memorable performance because of the Two Broken Arms.
Yeah, it was.
Going, see the bloke with the two broken arms?
Yes,
couldn't have worked out better for you.
Yeah, well, it did actually. It probably did work out quite well. But there was a lot of hard work and time and effort leading up to that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much history about your band, Brian, but there must have been bands before Uncanny X-Men. There must have been, this.
I was 12 when I started my first band. We didn't have a bass player. We had two electric guitars. We had a drummer. And I just always had a band all the way through. And then eventually you sort of go, we're not very good, fellas. Maybe we should, practice a bit more often and get good and write our own songs. So that's what we did. But it was, it didn't just, righto, hello, how are you? Let's be a band. It wasn't like that at all. They were all sort of mates in school and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting telling people, the backstory to a big.
I agree.
Yeah. And the other thing too about the book too is, I mean, Australian Crawl doesn't get mentioned until page 131.
Yep.
One of the reasons why the publishers really liked the book is because they liked the nostalgia of the story from the little boys through to the Crawl.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 50s and 60s and then on to the 70s and then into the 80s with the big bands. Yeah, they just sort of like the idea of looking back and reliving how things were in post-war 1952 when I was born.
Yeah, in my book, I talk about how the milk was still getting delivered by horses. Clip, clop, clip, clop.
That's how this book starts.
Yeah. That's
really?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's how mine starts.
Yeah, it does.
That's one of my fondest. Yeah, that's one of my fondest memories. How old are you now?
62.
Oh, you're much younger than me.
I don't look it, but anyway. But all that stuff from the 60s and, even in the 80s when, a lot of the stories that happened about your band, it's like they wouldn't have happened if we had mobile phones. But so we didn't know where he was and that sort of stuff. And But I think it was good to remind people of all of that. No, it was different then, that sort of stuff. As you say, the nostalgia. With my book, the X-Men's a part of it, but the whole point of my book was I've done a lot of good things in my life. And, yeah, the X-Men was great, but, I think having kids was far greater than anything the X-Men did.
Yeah.
I just tried to put the X-Men in perspective, as far as my life is concerned, and it sounds like you've done the same.
Yeah, well, I have. See, my book's about the journey of two brothers. It's not an Australian Crawl book.
Yep.
Australian Crawl was just, a couple of chapters in the overall journey from, when we were little boys growing up in North Bowen to, sadly when Guy passed away prematurely. But, then I take it right through until now in relation to how I'm dealing with, Guy's legacy, what I'm doing, how I'm dealing with Australian Crawl and my fellow band members, because we still have to communicate and make business decisions about copyright.
Okay.
Which is how the book finishes when you talk about the Universal deal and how that sort of all played out.
Yeah. Our careers were salvaged by Universal because EMI were letting us, wither on the vine. They'd really neglected Australian Crawl, like bands like Midnight Oil, In Excess, Cold Chisel, Split Ends, Crowded House. They're all trotting out their greatest hits volume number 300, and we didn't have anything coming out.
Yeah.
And as soon as Universal picked us up and they did our fourth greatest hits, which was the remastered one, it went to number 1 on the iTunes charts, number 4 on the ARIA charts, and it sold 70,000 platinum.
Wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often anymore.
No. And I had a number 1 at 61. Mind you, Brian, it was only number 1 for about 5 minutes, but it still went number 1.
Yeah, you got to screenshot that chart really quickly, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. Yes.
Yes. This podcast was number 1 for about 5 minutes at one stage. We went, screenshot it now, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we had a lot of problems with that. As you know, you probably haven't got to that part where, we had to part company with Simon Biggs, the guitar player.
No, I've got to that part. That was on the back of the current affair story.
Yeah. You almost sort of scotched this huge contract. And anyway, we managed to get it all sorted out, done and dusted, but it was...
a record company representative tracked him down and got him to sign without breaking both his arms, which is quite novel.
Yes.
In the history of Australian
surgery in Moonee Ponds, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm led to believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, it all got done and dusted, and, it was a great success. That's when James decided that he could remember about Australian Crawl. And now he's trotting himself out doing crawl tours.
The one thing I've always been uncomfortable with work, I mean, I've been on radio stations where, there wasn't a great radio station and you thought, but what you've done in the past is still a part of what you are now, regardless of whether you look back on it now and think, oh, Jesus, that was awful, or that was terrible. It's a part of what you are now, and to deny that it even exists almost, I've never understood why. And musicians do it probably more than musicians and movie stars and TV stars do it more than anybody else. They almost deny that they did that, which is, to me, bloody ridiculous.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's part of what happened. It's history, and you have to embrace it. And it's part of your journey. I don't understand why artists feel threatened by it. You got to start somewhere, don't you, Brian? You start somewhere.
Absolutely. I hate my first record. I think there's some good songs on it, but God, it's an awful recording. But, you go, oh, well, that's where I was then. You know, and if you look at all your records and stuff, it's almost autobiographical in that, well, what was I writing about here? Oh, yeah, okay, I must have been thinking about that then, and, that sort of stuff. You embrace everything you've done, I think one of the things with my book was I really wanted to show people how bad things, bad shit happens to everybody, and this happened to me. I got the shit punched out of me here, and, I think people actually enjoy my book starts off with me throwing up on the audience, which was a good way to start a book. But the mistakes you make the best anecdotes. You know, people saying, yeah, and then I was, punched up 4 bikies, had sex with 5 girls and was number 1. Who cares? But if you go, nah, bikie punched the crap out of me and I still had a gig to do, that's much more interesting.
Exactly. It is. Yes, you got to. That's what my book's all about. My book doesn't, it's not sanitized. It's not, well, it's sanitized in the sense that the publishing company were very careful about, not offending band members, litigation, girls, all that sort of stuff. So it's just it's a little bit politically correct in that regard, but it is the truth about what happened. It is warts and all.
Yep.
And I've told the world what happened to Guy, which wasn't pretty, but that's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got sacked. I got sacked. I got kicked out of the band because James and I don't like each other.
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm not going to bullshit.
This is what happened. So, this is why it happened, and this is what I had to do.
Yeah, that's great. I think people are going to love reading about this.
Yeah, and it's not, it's only a few pages in. It's only a few pages into the book where, Bill cries for the first time and soils his pants. So, it is warts and all.
Wow.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I was a very timid, shy little boy when I was, 5 or 6. But you know what, Kevin, the reason why I wanted to also tell a lot about the early days was that Guy was a completely different personality to me. So in describing how sort of timid and shy I was, fragile, and Guy was the opposite. He was sort of, more, he was a larrikin. He was naughty.
Yep.
He was a naughty little boy.
No, we love that.
So that's how you can see the development of the two personalities as they grow and come, through life together, and why Guy was like he was and why I'm like I am,
Yeah, no, it's great, and there's a lovely bit in it where you talk about going to a place called Children's Paradise, which was some sort of day camp, whatever it was that your parents sent you to. That I think that was almost the spot where you two came together and went, you know what, we're actually in this together. We're not apart.
Yes, we had to. That was a horror 2 weeks. Mum went away on a holiday and Dad had to work in the family business, so it was decided that we'd go to like this sort of quasi boarding school. It was a place where people sent their kids and they'd get looked after for, a week or 2 weeks. We were there for a fortnight. Felt like 2 years. It was a house of horrors. Yeah.
Run by a bloke called Uncle Roddy who had gold teeth. I'm sorry, just went, yep, there you go.
Yeah. Uncle Rudy.
Rudy, that's right.
Yeah, Uncle Rudy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was, Czechoslovakian or Russian. Bill.
I think I saw him in a James Bond movie.
I think I saw him in Hogan's Heroes.
Yes, he looked like he was bald with gold teeth.
Now, it would remiss of us not to talk about the elephant in the room in this book.
Yeah.
The drummer who really wanted to be a guitarist.
Oh, well.
Have you come to terms with that yet?
Hear the relief in Bill's voice then. Where the elephant in the room, it's like, good, I didn't know what was coming.
Yeah, I didn't know what he was going to say. You're right. Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me some sort of, difficult question about James or something like that. Yes, look, I suppose it's... I'm thinking probably retrospectively because, being a drummer, it's not the most glamorous job in a rock and roll band.
Nope.
I'd be sitting up there year in, year out, and girls would just be throwing themselves at the other guys, and I'd miss out. And I'm going, why didn't I play guitar? That would have been much better. I'd be able to stand up and move around and jump around and show off. And I'd get Sheila's.
Mind you, I think a drummer looks slightly cooler than a keyboard player because they look like somebody, doing the checkout at Coles.
Yes.
And
yes,
then when they got those guitars so they could move around, now that was just embarrassing for everybody.
Yes. Guitars, yes.
Oh,
Guitars.
God, help me.
Yes. Pseudo echo.
Yeah. I think Wah-Wah-Nee had one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think, I should have been a bass player.
A bass player?
Yeah, I should have been a bass player. Mm. Yeah, because that would have satisfied my natural rhythmic intentions, and but then I got stood up and
wiggled your hips a bit.
Impressed women.
And I think too, back in them days, how hot were the lights? And especially for, I'd be covered in sweat after 2 songs, but 10 times worse for the drummer because he might be on a rostrum that's even closer to the lights. And he's doing all the physical work. Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, I actually got cooked. Did I mention that in the book? I don't think I did. I think it got cut out.
I haven't seen it.
No. Well, I'll just tell you. We were playing the Prospect. Oh, we were doing it like a national tour, Brian. We were going, like the big East Coast run, and we were doing big RSLs and some outdoor speedways, and we were carrying a concert rig. We had 2 Pantex, one for stage, and another one had a fold-out stage, so we could do, Maruya Speedway and all those sort of big outdoor stuff. And for some reason, we were back in bloody Melbourne doing something or other, and they decided to throw in a Prospect Hill gig. So our lighting guy,
stage, pretty low
exactly. So our bloody idiot lighting guy, he's brought in half the concert rig and stuck it about that far off my head, and he's turned it on. And he's fried me, and I ended up in Frankston Hospital that night with kidney stones.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and I was absolutely buggered, and all the salts in my kidneys crystallised because I got overheated.
Jesus!
Oh my God!
Yeah, and then the next 2 nights or 3 nights we were in Sydney, and Derek Pellicci came in from LRB.
Yeah,
and he played. Whilst I got rid of the kidney stones and managed to get on a plane to come back up to Sydney to rejoin the band.
Good God.
It's funny you mentioned Derek Pellicci because he got fried too.
He did, yes.
He did.
Yes, he did.
He burned all his arms, and Jeff Cox had to fill in for an LRB tour to America.
Right.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. Yeah, it was. He got burned at a barbecue.
Yeah. That poured petrol or something on it to get it going. It wasn't a good idea.
No. He was badly burnt, very badly burnt.
Yeah, he was. So, maybe your next book could be called Drummers on Fire or something. This one's ready.
Hey, Brian, are you going to write another book? You got another book in you?
Well, not about me. I'm halfway through one at the moment, which is I'm really enjoying, but up here on the Gold Coast, a bit hard to get motivated, but I've written about 20 chapters, and I think it's really funny, but it's just about the characters in it. It's nothing to do with rock and roll. But anyway, look, if I finish it, great, but I think it's good to sort of have, you've got to have purpose in life. So sometimes you've got too much spare time, your mind finds things to worry about. So, you play guitar or you use your mind constructively, and seems to be good for mental health.
Have you still got the demolition business, Bill?
Yes, I have.
So you're still blowing shit up?
Yeah, but I'm trying not to do too much in it these days because I am 70.
Yep.
And 71, actually.
Well, you're looking great.
November.
Thanks, mate.
Is November your birthday? Early November?
Yeah, I just turned 71.
There you go.
I've got to tell you something also. You'll die when you hear about this. Anyway, I'm trying to, sort of semi-retire. My son, fortunately, is in business, and he's a very capable young man, so he tends to do 80% of it, and I sort of do about 20% of it now.
Perfect.
Mm. I didn't know you were living on the Gold Coast, or you're just up there holiday. You live there now?
No, I live here. I had enough of Melbourne. I love Melbourne, but
Yeah.
281 days of lockdown and the weather, and I just think the traffic got really bad. And I've always wanted to live up here. Probably inspired by watching you guys on the water slides and surfing. And,
Yes.
Errol,
Well,
was it? Was it Errol?
Yeah, it was Errol, yeah. That's the same reason
great.
why Meredith and I bought a place up on the Sunshine Coast, because we just got sick and tired of bloody freezing cold Melbourne, and I like Queensland. It's a very nice place. Very nice.
Mate, thanks for your time. It's always good to
No
catch
worries.
up. Book's bloody
thanks,
good.
Kevin.
Book's really good.
Yeah,
well done.
Congratulations on the book, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kevin. Lovely to talk to you guys.